My name is Jack. I wish I could say my story started here at 18 years old, but really, it started a long time ago. In fact, some would say I was born for this business. At a young age, I was playing sports like baseball, basketball, football, amateur wrestling, and hockey. Pretty much anything you can imagine an all American boy would play competitively. I was touted as one of the best in my age group. My freshman year of high school, I made varsity basketball and football. By my junior year, I was one of the highest ranked wrestlers in the state. When it came down to it, though, I wanted to be a professional wrestler. When I was going into high school, I convinced my parents to take me to a pro wrestling school. We managed to find a local indie guy who would train anyone if they had cash. He clearly wasn't the most reputable, but I didn't know any better. He beat the hell out of me in that awful, awful ring. Bump after bump, and frankly, I wasn't going to quit. This was my dream. He booked me on shows telling me it was part of my training. In other words, he was just trying to avoid paying me. Once again, though, I didn't know any better. Even if I did, I probably wouldn't have minded much because I was happy to be doing what I loved. Shortly after that, I started my YouTube channel where I would comment on what the big promotions were doing and how I would book the shows. Some of the more reputable dirt sheets began to even link to my videos and talk about how what I was coming up with was better than what SWF, USPW, and TCW were doing at the time. On the Bird app, I was getting followed by people I looked up to inside the business. My videos and posts were garnering a lot of attention. It was great, but people were not recognizing me for my wrestling skills. Most didn't even know I was wrestling. Kyle Rhodes was one of those people who began following me and liking some of my videos and posts online. There were some other wrestlers too that were also associated with TCW. Very recently, I was streaming one of my modded wrestling games infused with TCW, USPW, and SWF wrestlers when I got a private message. It was someone named Sophie. She claimed to be an employee of TCW asking me if I would be interested in a potential opportunity with the company. And if so, she would need my phone number in order to discuss this matter further. As soon as my stream ended, I replied with my number. I obviously thought that it was some kind of prank or a joke that one of my followers was playing on me. But shortly after that, I received a phone call from a very familiar voice. "Hey, is this Jack? This is Kyle Rhodes, CEO of TCW. I would like to fly you out here to the good old TCW HQ to discuss some business. How does that sound?" "That sounds fantastic, Mr. Rhodes. What kind of business are we talking about?" "Well, that depends on you, son. I have obviously kept an eye on your Red App channel for a while now, and I think you have some great ideas. We've been discussing changing some things up around here for a while, and last week I had a meeting with Brent, Joel, and Robert to discuss our build-up to Malice in Wonderland. Anyways, I would like to pick your brain on some things and see if you have any good ideas. If all of this sounds good, I will hand the phone over to Sophie for her to take down some information and get you out here." "Well, I like the sound of that. Let's make this happen." I spoke with Sophie for a little bit, and she managed to get everything taken care of. She even arranged for me to be picked up by a limo at the airport. I was emailed all of the information I needed, and I had only a few hours to get to the airport, which was more than enough time. I wasn't sure if they realized or not from my channel, but I had always preferred TCW over SWF or even USPW. In fact, my fandom began with the Hollyweird Grappling Company, and Tommy Cornell was my favorite wrestler for the longest time. Heck, he was probably still my favorite wrestler, even though I no longer work for TCW. The idea that I could work for TCW in some sort of booking capacity would be another dream come true. Kyle never said anything about me being on screen or wrestling, though. I wonder if this means I would no longer wrestle. If I don't ever wrestle again, and my role in professional wrestling is as a writer or on a booking team, that is still pretty amazing. While waiting to board my plane, I got to work looking at what TCW currently had going on with their storylines, factions, tag teams, their title holders, the roster, even their developmental wrestlers. I looked at all of their events, TV shows, and even looked back at some of their old TCW Saturday Night Showcase shows to see if I could get some inspiration. I then pondered if there were any ideas for the inactive titles. Would I even be able to recommend bringing some of those back? Some ideas came to mind, but they didn't have most of the former champions on the roster. Then I boarded the plane. The whole plane ride, I was so nervous and had so many ideas in my mind. There were things I had said on my channel about TCW needing to improve, and all of those things came rushing to the top of my mind. As someone who has trained and worked a few wrestling matches, I knew a bit more about what to look for in judging the quality of workers, whether that be wrestlers, managers, or even referees. While I am still greener than a gardener's knees on Memorial Day weekend, I still know more than casual fans. I made some notes on some things I thought the company should look to bring in. Referees were a little slim, and I knew to have quality shows week in and week out, we would have to find a couple good ones. The commentary wasn't the best, but it wasn't bad either. I think adding some better broadcasters could really breathe new life into the presentation. Now, if I was to be on the booking team, I would not have any say in this. So while I took notes down about this, I wasn't planning on telling Kyle any of this. Hours later, I arrived and was picked up by a driver. When he opened the door to the limo, I was surprised, but I was greeted by Kyle himself. Kyle Rhodes and Sophie were sitting there going over Total Wrestling notes that Brent Hill had sent to Kyle. When I got in the car, I was asked to tell them about my involvement in wrestling since they had only knew of me from my channel. I went into my love of wrestling, why I fell in love with it, my deep fandom of HGC, then TCW, and how Tommy Cornell is probably my favorite wrestler. I told them I like a good mix of quality wrestling matches and larger-than-life characters, but ultimately the story is what really captivates me. I also managed to throw in that I had been training to be a wrestler for 5 years and had worked some local shows around where I lived. You know, kid, you looked very athletic, but I honestly chalked it up to your age and that you probably played high school sports. Well, sir, I did actually have scholarship offers to play football at a couple Division I schools and even had some for amateur wrestling. I'd been considering them, but I chose to pursue wrestling. Recently, I had reached out to Piledriver School of Wrestling to go and further my training a bit. In fact, I was planning on going out there next month to check them out. So are you pretty good in the ring? Maybe you can work a match sometime soon and show us what you have. Would you want to wrestle still, or do you like the idea of being a booker more? Oof, that's such a tough question, Kyle. I think both are fulfilling in different ways. On one hand, wrestling is so much fun and it is easy to get caught up in the moment. There's nothing like performing in front of a crowd. Then again, booking is a whole different set of challenges, but is creatively satisfying. So I guess I say that I couldn't really choose between the two, and I would like to do both. That's actually a good answer. Well, I can't promise we would want to see you wrestling for us, but I can give you the chance to prove yourself. And if you do well, then I won't rule that out. Worst case scenario, you can pick the brains of the guys and work on your ring work to eventually become on-screen talent. Just know we are hoping you will become our new head booker. Wait, what? Isn't Brent Hill your head booker? You guys have a lot of experienced guys who help book your shows. Yes, Brent was our head booker. But he has agreed to lace up the boots again. He and Joel Bryant, actually, have both decided to work as producers and in-ring talent for us once again. So if you have any ideas for them, I am sure they won't be difficult for you to work with. The discussion went on, and it felt like we were just old friends talking about wrestling. Apparently, Sophie would be my secretary and would help me with the day-to-day job. Kyle proceeded to tell me all the job's responsibilities, and I have to admit, it was unbelievable that TCW would give the book to an 18-year-old. The ability to decide who to hire, fire, and put some of the most prestigious titles on in the business was a little overwhelming. We pulled up to TCW HQ, and it was amazing. So many emotions ran through me. They gave me a tour and even showed me what was going to be my new office. We then settled in the conference room, and paperwork was brought out and put in front of me. Kyle said if I would accept the job, all I had to do was sign on the dotted line. I didn't even ask what my salary would be, as they could go and pay me in hot dogs and handshakes for all I cared. This was probably a sign of my immaturity. I am sure next time I will have an agent or attorney at least look over the details. Once I signed, Kyle said, I can get to work with Sophie in my office, and she would go over some things with me. When we got to my office, it took a second, but I had Sophie make a list for me as I rattled off potential referees, broadcasters, and wrestlers that I would like to bring into the company. We ended up referring to this as my short list. Sophie then presented the sheets that Brent Hill and the booking team had come up with that was approved by Kyle Rhodes for the next couple of weeks of TV. We had 4 shows before Malice in Wonderland, and I was thinking that I wasn't too thrilled with the build so far. On the first episode of Total Wrestling, the Syndicate had been hyped as being in attendance with something to say. The Elite would face Bart Biggins and a partner of his choosing. There were a few suggestions on here for who his partner would be, but I had one in mind. Benny Benson had been watching Greg Gage for weeks as he defended his TV title and would be watching Gage defend against Flying Jimmy Fox, which just so happens to be Benny's friend and tag team partner. Mighty Mo would be taking on the Behemoth's Killer Shark, which, by the way, I feel like that name has got to go. I'm just not a fan of it. Lastly, the only other thing that was on this, which was being promoted already, was the Ace, Aaron Andrews, would defend the world title against Troy Tornado. While this show looks okay on paper, it really didn't impress me much. I knew I had to get some more guys involved, and I also needed to get to know some of them as well to get some buy-in for what my vision was going to be of TCW. The second Total Wrestling show had Sammy Bach, who would be given a chance to address the TCW fans. Mark Speed would take on Chance Fortune. Freddie and Laura Huggins would also address the fans in attendance. T-Bone Bright would be wrestling. Greg Gage would be defending his title once again, but this time against Daryl Devine. There were other matches on these cards, but they hadn't been promoted yet, and so I felt I might be able to change them up a bit if I wanted to. There were notes on both sheets about who should win which match. There were even little side notes about who would possibly be in upcoming matches on the following 3rd and 4th Total Wrestling. But again, none of it was hand typed. And so again, I felt like I had some flexibility. And without them promoting any of these things, again, I felt like I was in control. I asked Sophie to get me the latest reports on our 6 developmental wrestlers. And if she could get me some videos of their work, that would be great. She said that would be no problem. I spent the rest of my first day on the job planning and plotting while watching videos of our developmental guys. The next morning, and the day of Total Wrestling Week 1 on our road to Malice in Wonderland, I was hit with an email of rules from Kyle Rhodes, and the Bry Company management was tagged on it. I am not sure if Kyle came up with these or if his bosses did, but none of this had been discussed the previous day. In 2 years, TCW must be considered by most as the 3rd biggest promotion in the world or bigger. Ace Andrews and Wolf Hawkins must be graded a 71 out of 100 in the TEW 2020 overness ratings. Number 3, TCW doesn't want any comedy wrestlers brought onto the roster. Number 4, TCW thinks workplace safety is very important, so we must not hire anyone who is rated in TEW 2020 ratings as a 60 or below in safety. What I learned is that someone loves the TEW 2020 online database and references it quite a bit. So I guess I'll have to use that when making determinations myself. Sophie then walked into my office and told me about a TEW 2020 dashboard that they would like to see me using for all things, including planning storylines, checking contract details, and so much more. Apparently, it was standard operating procedure to use this as our business management software, and most top pro wrestling companies use this. After looking at it, though, I realized that it was quite handy. They even want me to book our cards in the software so everyone in our company can see it. It will go on to pull data from TEW 2020's website of reviewers to gather ratings for us to view. I mean, I guess this tool is super handy. Now, on to my thoughts about the rules. 2 years is a long time, and I would like to see us surpass SWF. So I think that time isn't too bad. Rule number 1 should be pretty easy to do. Rule number 2, Ace and Wolf must stay popular. Yeah, that shouldn't be an issue. Rule number 3, they want us to keep the comedy out of TCW. While that should be simple, it does sort of limit me and what I can do. There are already some guys who seem like comedy acts right now. Fonzarelli, Giant Tana, for example, are 2 guys who are easy to book in funny angles. I have to take this into account when booking them. Rule number 4, wrestler safety is important, but how am I supposed to hire young potential superstars to development if I have to stick to this rule? I just hope they let me pay to bring in stars from other companies then. But somehow I feel like that's just going to be restricting. I'm sure that they're going to want a lot of money, and management probably won't want me to spend that much. As I was pondering all of this, I caught Kyle Rhodes walking past my office. I asked Kyle if he could come in real quick. I asked him if I needed to run hires by him or management before making offers. He said no, but just know that there might be times that they will restrict how much I offer. I'm assuming when I ask the lawyers to write it up on paper, I'm sure then they'll probably look it over. I also told him that I was able to check out the TCW school attached to the other side of the HQ. And I spotted a few things that I think could be improved upon. It'd probably cost us $50K, another $60K for this thing, and then $70K in order to get the training up to speed. I also had already kind of looked at things online, and in order to maintain it would probably cost us about $79K a month just to maintain 100% training level. Kyle gave me the green light and told me he liked my attention to detail. Couldn't tell if he was just trying to shrug me off so he could get back to what he was doing, but the last thing I asked Kyle, because I could tell he was in a hurry, was what he thought about bringing the old B show back on Saturdays. Kyle said right this moment he wasn't sure, but he would think about it. He then asked if I was going to be ready to go to Total Wrestling tonight. I said of course, but I needed to look at a few things on my dashboard first. I could have asked him about the rules and if they were his or if someone else came up with them, but I was sure in the moment I would probably figure it out in due time. Kyle went his own way and I went back to my desk to get to work. I removed some people off of the short list that I gave to Sophie yesterday based on the rules that I now had. When I went into the database, I also noticed that there were phone numbers to reach out to potential employees. I got a little nervous and I called one retired worker, and he picked up. Now, honestly, I probably wouldn't have done this, but in the past, I had actually had quite a few interactions with them on social media, and they knew who I was. So I figured in this moment, this would be all right to do. They picked up the phone, and I froze. Hello? This is Jack, the new head booker of TCW. I was calling to see if you had any interest in coming out of retirement to wrestle again. If so, I would like to bring you to TCW, and I have some ideas for you. All right, guys, so that's episode 1. It's basically my little backstory and how Jack Avatar was hired by TCW. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Do you like this more of a diary style? Is it more entertaining? Do you want me to do these in between some of my shows? Even the shows that I'm going to book, I'm probably going to do something more like this in character, explaining like as I'm reading a blog or a review or something along those lines, because I think it might be more interesting. But let me know what you think, if you'd rather me do it like this, or if you do just want me to go through and what I booked and why and things like that. Would love to hear your thoughts below. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put this much detail into future things like this. I would like to. I wrote a 5-page script for this. So it's taken some time to put this together, but I'm pretty excited about doing it this way. I just think it's a lot of fun. And again, would love to know what you think about this format, this style. So if you're looking forward to this, let me know in the comments below. Subscribe. Share this with other people you know who love Total Extreme Wrestling, because If I'm doing all this work and only like 1, 2, 3 people are viewing it, I don't know if I'm going to put this much detail into it. So if you really like this style, spread the word. Let's get some people watching this, because it'll be a lot easier if I'm getting some interactions and things like that. I'd like to work towards bringing in some of the comments and interactions from you guys that way, because I think that would be cool. And who knows, if this is going really well, maybe I reach out to some of you guys to maybe do some voice acting on the channel for it. I think that would be pretty cool. Not guaranteeing that, but it might be kind of fun to maybe get some of you guys involved a little bit if you're interested. So with that, guys, thank you for watching. Once again, this is, Pro Wrestling with Juice. That's my channel here. But if you like this, you like Total Extreme Wrestling, again, please give us a subscribe. Like this video. We do other TEW games, or are going to. They're not going to have this level of detail. More fantasy booking for fun, less kayfabe and character work and stuff like that. So if you want to check out those too, please do. All of those will be in nice organized playlists below. With that, thank you for watching, and we will see you guys next time.